Hello, and welcome to Fermenting Opinions. I am your host, David Poseidon.
I'm your co-host, James McVeigh.
And we are Fermenting Opinions, the podcast in search of a more palatable political ferment. Here tonight, on episode 8 of Fermenting Opinions, we're handling the case of Coach Kennedy, Joseph A. Kennedy, who recently did not have his contract, well, actually not recently, it was 2015, didn't have his contract renewed. He sued. And this is all about religious freedom. Do you want to give us a little bit more?
Sure. As far as I understand it, I'm kind of loose on the facts, to be honest. But my understanding is this case comes out of Bremerton, Washington. Coach Joseph Kennedy was a assistant high school football coach, and initially he came into conflict with the Bremerton School District for leading locker room prayers during halftime or before the game, after the game, something like that, where he would basically kind of assert himself in his Christian religious belief. He'd start leading prayers, and students would join him. At some point, this was reported to the school district. The school district talked to him and said, hey, bro, no go. You got to stop that because this is really kind of running afoul of the First Amendment. We don't want to deal with it. You're basically putting us in a bad position, and
right.
And we don't want this to become a problem. So my understanding is Mr. Kennedy then followed their lead and said, that's totally fine, don't worry about it, and instead began leading prayers on the 50-yard line at the end of games in view of parents, the public, students. Students would come join in.
There was sort of an evolution of behaviors in terms of, because it started out, as I understand it, because from what my cursory reading of the brief, that it started out he was leading prayers and in sort of inspirational kind of religious based motivation in the locker rooms for the football players before they would go out and play. And when he was sort of checked on that he couldn't do it, he then went and, without necessarily leading them on purpose, went to going to the 50-yard line or going out on the field after a game and praying to give thanks to nobody who was injured, thanks for the sports, whatever he was praying to exactly. It started this way, and all his players that he previously led in prayer would end up coming out and joining him.
Mm-hmm.
The obvious and immediate question is this coercive?
Sure, and I guess that's what the Bremerton School District thought. That they thought, look, this is inappropriate. Your actions are basically leading your students, your players, to think that they need to join you in this, or there's even a danger of it. Like, we really don't want to be involved in it. And so the issue became, I guess, that they warned him about the locker room prayer. He bought that. He said, that's fine. Then he began the 50-yard line prayer, or 50-yard line prayer, or whatever.
Right.
And then they warned him about that.
Yep.
Then he said, okay, basically the school district told him, it's fine if you want to pray on the 50-yard line. Can you wait until students and teachers
it got to that point, but
students
before
and parents are gone? And he said yes to that, and he was cool with it, and he followed that rule for a while before he reverted back to praying.
And he did start doing it again. There was a point that it's not like, I'm not trying to ascribe motives to this guy who just went out. He couldn't do the motivational prayer in the locker room. He would go out on the 50-yard line. He would pray. Other people would start joining him. It got to the point where even the opposing team would be invited to join in the prayer.
Yes.
And so you have this whole, and you would have people like jumping off the bleachers and jumping the fences to come onto the field to pray because
they felt
he was essentially that he was kind of led.
Well,
they were kind of led by this guy.
And that's where the danger comes in, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but
sure.
That's where the issue comes in for the school district. The school district says, how much of this is somebody feeling compelled to want to pray to their God, and how much of this is a public show that's coercion, where you feel like a necessary pull to join the crowd without being singled out.
And let's explain that. Explain what is coercion in this setting, because I know people are going to compare this to other settings, and we're going to get to that later. But in this setting, we're talking about a school. We're talking about students. We're talking about team members.
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say is let's kind of retrace before we get to that, because I feel like we're going to get in the meat of that.
Okay, okay, good.
But the real issue comes in, again, where you get these prior warnings from the school district saying, stop it, essentially. Like, this is the problem. You need to stop doing this in front of people. Like, if you need a place to pray, we want to accommodate you. But we're worried about you coercing young minds into feeling they have to join you. And we're worried about the entanglement that brings up. And again, we'll talk about that in a moment as far as the Constitution goes. But the school district is being proactive and saying we don't want to be liable for this. So at some point, when he continues to refuse their direction, they suspend him. They tell him, you're not fired, you're just going to have to stop doing your job. They suspended
him with pay.
They did. And we'll give you pay. You know, it's not a one-point thing. I mean, it builds.
Yeah.
So he's suspended with pay until the end of his contractual term for that year. His contract is up, and essentially someone from the school district told him, look, don't bother reapplying.
See, that...
Or that's the...
Hang on a second. Let me, if I can address that briefly, that the lawsuit came out by Kennedy against the school district.
He was the plaintiff, yes.
Because he felt his First Amendment rights were being violated. He demanded to be reinstated as a coach and be allowed to pray on the 50-yard line. He didn't say to lead others in prayer, but this is the kernel of his complaint. Part of the issue here is that he was never actually fired, and
no, he was not. He was suspended.
You could interpret.
I mean, suspension.
If you're reading between the lines of "don't bother reapplying," but what actually happened was his contract expired.
Sure, he was just told
it was up for renewal. He did not apply for renewal because
he was told
the writing was on the wall. But that's what I got to push back on is no one ever told him, "Hey, bud, don't bother reapplying."
I thought that was part of it. Well, either way. I guess he got the impression from their actions and what happened.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The impression was the writing on the wall, but it was never expressed to him.
No, I thought that he got an idea of, don't bother, Jack. You know, like, you're too much of a liability. We don't want to be involved with you.
But see, I think that they were already, based on what I've read in the brief of this case, which is, what would we say, was Bremerton v. Kennedy?
Kennedy v. Bremerton would be probably the proper
because he was the plaintiff.
Yeah,
sure, okay. That, you know, they tried to mitigate as much as possible with regards to with regards to praying, that he could either go into somewhere, even on the school grounds, and pray where he was in private and he was out in public view, or when everybody, and you had mentioned earlier, or when he left. They were trying to mitigate this. I think they were aware of the legalities. I don't think, to me, it would sound boneheaded to say, hey, bud, don't bother reapplying. You're not going to get it because you're giving him ammo. Well, he didn't say it. He assumed it. He probably assumed it correctly, but to my knowledge, he never actually said it.
My understanding was that the school district, and I mean, again, I glanced through the brief, guys. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't spend the full time reading it. I just kind of browsed through it because I mean, personally, and I'll get into this later again, is I kind of knew how this one was going. But my understanding from the brief essentially was that that they didn't deny the allegation that they would not have rehired him because of this. They basically said, we admit. You know, and then that's how you answer a complaint.
I guess I didn't get that from the...
We admit this. We admit that we would not have rehired you because of the way you expressed your religious practices.
Okay, but hang on just a second. But they didn't actually express that in verbiage. That they said, we have problems with what you did because of, you know, point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have these problems. And now at no point did they actually express, dude, you're not going to be rehired. Again, obviously read between the lines.
They may not have in that sense, but I'm saying when it came down to the legal challenge, my understanding, having skimmed through the filings, I'll go back and look again.
Did he believe the interpretation?
This is always that point in the podcast where we tell you if you disagree with something, especially something factual, please come redress it and tell us, because I could be wrong. I mean, I'm human, and again, I didn't spend a whole lot of time studying this, but my understanding was the response to the complaint, the answer to the complaint, the initial complaint, it was not denied by Bremerton. They would not rehire him because of it. They admit, we're not going to rehire you because of the practices.
I wish I'd seen that in there. I guess I don't know if I missed it or I personally think that was part of the suit.
And again, spoiler alert. I don't think that changes the outcome.
No, it really doesn't.
But I think they did. I don't think they even tried to fight it. I think they.
It seems sort of.
They said, "Look, we're not interested." They have the right.
Inadvisable, from a legal perspective, to tell somebody because of X, Y,
I don't
Z.
know if they told him. But
we don't want to rehire you. Don't apply.
And that's where I'm confused, and I'm trying to say that I don't know if they told him that and reached out and said it before, or if in their lawsuit they just admit his allegation that you would not have rehired
Or
me.
we're going to have to
because of it,
fact
and
check
they
this
say,
one.
We agree. We would not have rehired you.
Yeah,
because of this.
my understanding was that he did not reapply.
He didn't. No.
Whereas the other coaches, because like basically all the coaching spots, you know, their contract expired, and they were all up for renewal. He did not apply for renewal. I think probably because he knew the writing was on the wall.
Sure, and what he wanted to challenge was suspension. He wanted to challenge the suspension.
The suspension, and well, I mean, he was demanding his job.
Yeah,
that's part of the complaint.
But yes, but I think his challenge would have been based on the suspension. Would have said you had no right to suspend.
And that changed whether or not they would have rehired him.
I guess on fact-based wise, my understanding is that when he was told he couldn't pray on the 50-yard line with people in view, his response was to seek an exemption under the Civil Rights Amendment.
Right.
Or the Civil Rights Act of 1964. He claimed a religious exemption.
Right, and does that seem to you like sort of, I don't know, like a made up exemption kind of thing?
It's not, no. I mean, essentially, there are a list of things that you cannot discriminate against people for based on civil rights. One of them is their religious practices, age, color, national origin.
But does that cover
or sex? Well, I think sex was added with
68.
But yeah, it might have been a little bit later. But
another
one was national origin, religious practices, things like that. So he had the I guess the standing to challenge that and say, I want a Civil Rights Act exemption. This is a religious practice thing. But the argument comes in from the school district side of, no, it's too coercive. And I think that's how we got to this challenge in the first place. So I apologize for the little distraction, but I wanted to cover the factual basis of the fact that it started with locker room prayer. He was told not to do that. He agreed. Then he went to taking a knee on the 50-yard line and praying.
And people started
joining him, and they told him, don't do that either. But we'll let you pray. Just wait until everyone's gone. You know,
or go somewhere where you're in
private. Or
private.
you can go somewhere in private. Which he did for...
Because, and I'll bring this up just because I did the Facebook debating thing. And I did my yelling at the wall. And some people believe that because he was praying physically by himself one time, which there was only one time that he ended up being by himself. Versus,
well, that didn't violate anything. I mean,
what's being expressed? He's still doing it in public view. That's why it's important because he's in public praying by himself. That doesn't make it private.
Okay,
let's
and I agree with you on that.
Okay,
but let's move on to the idea of where does this fall in constitutionally? This is your understanding because again, and for full disclosure, I'll let David say it as well. You are the president of Americans United for the separation of church and state in the state
in Tennessee.
In Tennessee.
Right. First of all, it's only because there's one chapter in Tennessee. I'm therefore the president over the whole state. When I'm doing this, when I'm on the podcast or on a YouTube hangout or I'm on Facebook or anything else like that, or I'm in your face, this is me as me.
Personally.
Nothing here I'm doing is endorsed by Americans United officially. I think I have opinions that are probably not particularly different than whatever the official platform is of AU on this particular issue. I would be really shocked if they disagree with me. But I'm only representing myself here.
This is
this doesn't form an attorney-client relationship.
But as somebody who is in this position, and I know that you're well educated on the subject, particularly religious First Amendment rights.
Sure.
What is your understanding of what happened here?
My understanding is this guy is a public official. Mm-hmm. Acting in his role as a faculty member, as a government employee.
Okay, let's stop right there real quick.
Okay.
So he is a public official simply because he is a government, or he's a
government employee, not like elected to government.
And you think he's acting in his capacity because
he was there to coach a football team. He's there.
Sure.
He's there wearing the logos of his
like
school,
a polo, or if you're Jim Tressel. God bless Jim Tressel, R.I.P. Ohio State, but whatever. Okay. But with your sweater vest or whatever, something with a school logo, you know.
He's clearly identified. Everyone knows he's the coach.
He's on the sideline.
He's there to coach the team. That's why he showed up that night.
Sure.
And he's on school grounds because the football field is part of the school grounds. He's doing this, and he is in his messaging, in his display. Mm-hmm. He is endorsing Christianity, and it's not. Well, you didn't hear. Well, they say he prayed to himself. some people found it audible, some people didn't. There were times where he did pray completely silently, and a lot of this gets conflated with one with the other. But the fact is that it's known that he's an evangelical Christian, and he's taking a knee on the 50-yard line.
Hold on. We're talking a lot of different things. It's known that he's an evangelical Christian. It's known. I mean,
it's known by the people who are watching.
Okay. I mean, I guess he's following evangelical practices or something like that. Like he's taking a knee, he's doing his thing.
Sure.
Let's slow down. Let's slow down.
But the endorsement is of the fact that his essentially his behavior is endorsing his particular faith.
Okay.
Or any faith would be bad enough, but we know it's his faith. He's not in there.
Sure. Yeah.
Endorsing Judaism.
He's not talking about Allahu Akbar or something.
Right. And it wouldn't matter if he was versus whatever thing he actually believed.
The fact that he's in this setting, a lot more pissed off people, but
yeah, I know that's how you. I'm not going to get into that.
Yeah, well,
that's how you sell church-state separation. It's talking about Islam.
But that is the purpose of this whole thing, right? Is to protect the minority religions, particularly.
Well, in this case, it's not just minority religions. It's the students themselves that.
Sure.
And even if they are Christians, they shouldn't be coerced into praying, into making those public, displays, because you can be ostracized. You can be considered of the out group or lesser or second class citizen. This is the problem with any kind of religious display or
spectacle
in a public forum on taxpayer funded dime, basically.
Yeah, I mean you're located physically in a stadium paid for by tax dollars.
Not in this case, it's
you are being paid for your
the
time.
tax dollars of Washingtonians, I think.
Well, yes, Washingtonians. Yes, it'd be in the state of Washington. You're correct. Now, my question is, this is on their dime for the stadium itself. I mean, the grounds he's located on belong to Washington taxpayers, essentially. Right. I mean, you elect representatives to take care of it or do things and make decisions for the city.
Sure.
But number one fact, ain't nobody paid for it but the people of Washington who pay taxes, correct?
Yes.
And the same situation with his salary, correct?
Yes.
So this man is being paid to pray in the full view of the public.
And this is a violation of freedom of conscience which falls under religious freedom.
Okay.
Well, you think about the RFRA laws and stuff like that, like the original RFRA laws, the Religious
Freedom Restoration Act
of like the 90s that Clinton signed on,
which was declared unconstitutional and then resurrected from some demon.
You're thinking about different versions of it because there's like the federal one, which was not as bad, and then there's all the state ones that are horrible.
Hey, fun legal fact aside, Church of Lukumi Babalu. Look that motherfucker.
What is that?
That is the original case of a Santana style practice of sacrificing animals.
You mean Santeria?
Santeria.
You said Santana.
Yep, that's my mistake.
I mean Carlos.
Yeah.
But
anyway, Santeria. Sorry, it's a Santeria practice.
Or like the city of Hialeah and all that. Is that the case you're thinking of?
Yes, it's the Church of Lukumi Babalu.
I didn't know the name of it. Yeah,
but they were the ones who killed the official RFRA. The first one was that. No.
Gotcha. There's I don't want to go off on that rabbit trail. I'm not going to do it. But back to this. You have a guy. This is the salient point. That if you have somebody, if you are a student especially, and you have someone who's in a position of authority over you, and they are openly expressing sectarian views, if you are not on that team, it's very obvious to you that you're going to be on the outs. And this isn't just about feelings.
Okay.
This is about rights. And it's coercive, and it's in a school setting, and the taxpayers of the state of Washington are paying for this to go down. To me, this is prima facie, unconstitutional.
So what you're telling me is, or what we're saying here, I guess, is that we have a concern that these students basically are faced with some objective where if you don't join the coach in prayer, you may be seated in a bad situation for keeping a roster spot next year, something of that nature. Right. You're on the practice squad, you JV, or you varsity, whatever, based on preference, meaning how many times have you been...
And this is a discrimination that's very difficult to prove.
Yes.
To say, oh, well, I didn't go and pray with. I keep wanting to call him Coach Z, Coach Kennedy.
Star runner.
I didn't go out on the field and pray with Coach Kennedy. Everyone saw me. I'm one of the 20 dudes still on the bleachers that didn't come down, and I'm there in my football pads, not wanting to come down.
I didn't really want to be involved in this.
And then when I get benched the next whole game, do I know that's reprisal? Can I prove that?
Yeah.
Versus, is that what's actually happening? These are situations that really no child should be in ever.
When I think, and that seems to have been the position of the Bremerton School District, and that seems to have been the position of the federal court that ruled in their favor, and that seems to be the position of the 3-court panel from the Ninth Circuit that also upheld the same ruling.
Yeah, and I certainly have no problem with that. But I mean, are you saying the guy just can't pray? Like, is he not allowed? Is he not allowed to be a Christian anymore?
Well, and that's where this comes into
Godless
issue.
heathen.
I mean, okay, look. No,
that was me playing devil's advocate,
of course, and I don't think that that's an issue here. I think that it really does, and I mean the courts obviously agree. This really just comes down to a coercion effort of how much does this guy's message get pushed on not just the public but the young impressionable public. Excuse me. About, I mean, and it goes right to this whole, I guess, trying to make the team type comparison. If you're struggling for a roster spot and you're still on it, but you're riding the pine, you're warming the benches most of the time, but you play occasionally or something like that, and then he does this whole little move where he's starting to lead these prayers. What's the quickest way you think to this particular coach's spot?
Absolutely. This is I see like sort of like hostile work environment type equivalents where you're supposed to go along
exactly
with the culture that you're stuck in because you want to succeed in that environment.
Constitutionally, that's where the problem arises. That's where the entanglement really comes in, and you'll hear all kinds of different, I guess, arguments from different people on different sides about whether or not is this an entanglement of religion. If you can do this for, I guess, legislative acts or something like that. Like, well, wasn't there a Supreme Court case where they said it was totally fine for legislative bodies to pray before a meeting or something? Then why can't this guy pray?
Right. Can we hit that briefly?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, because I think it's important because people bring this up and they talk about, oh, well, the original intent of the law never said that, a guy couldn't pray in a public school, or, Congress, they can't open with a prayer. There was nothing in the original intent. Obviously, look at the founders. They had the early Congress had a chaplain and all. They bring up all this crap, right?
And I think this is an important point to hit because this is where the line is drawn.
Because it's extremely nuanced.
This is where the line is drawn, where the school system begins. Those of you who hold the view that you think there's no prayer in school and prayer is not allowed in school, you're absolutely wrong. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you that de facto up front. There is not.
I was almost waiting for somebody to yell at us.
In a public school, there's no rule against prayer.
Right.
Students can lead prayers all day. A student can ask permission to hold a prayer rally,
so long as it's unobtrusive and does not distract from. I think the academic.
Yeah, but I mean they can
criteria, goals, whatever.
You can have, say, school starts at 7:45 in the morning. If it's 7:15, you want the school's permission to rally around a flagpole,
right,
and hold a prayer to Jesus. Every student who wants to be there can come. If it is a student-organized thing, if students are leading prayer, other students can join. The issue comes in when teachers do it, when somebody in a position of authority does it, because this is where you get this coercive nature, this idea that you have to actually participate or you're not part of the team. Participate or you're not one of the favored students. Participate or you're not a favorite player.
And this is not about feelings being hurt.
No, it's not.
It's a constitutional issue. But at the same time, I don't want to ignore the fact that what's occurring is unethical. When you talked about the divisiveness that let's meet at the flagpole and pray. They know who's there. They know who's not there.
Of course.
People can be bullied. People can be ostracized.
So you don't believe it's ethical for Christian children to gather at the flagpole to pray at 7:15?
Do I think it's ethical?
To allow students to lead student-led prayer?
I mean, I can recognize that they have the constitutional right to do so,
Okay.
Do I think it's wrong? Yes, I do. But again, that's the difference between whether or not I think they should versus whether or not I think they can. You know what I mean?
Okay, and that's
Legally.
That's an important distinction.
And I'm making that distinction.
Because,
do I think they should? No, because it accomplishes nothing. You can pray as much as you want at home, at church.
I think that does...
on your own. But the fact that you want to, sort of champion this as a matter of public will, it only serves to divide, in my opinion. And it's bad form. And we see this from the other side, from Satanist groups, from humanist groups. It's a funny thing. There's an elementary school in Brentwood. I think it's Crockett Elementary, but I can't remember the name of it. Tomorrow, Tuesday, they are doing a Free Thinkers at the Flag. Why? Because it's in response to one of these, pray at the flag, meet at the flagpole kind of things.
Okay.
Because they're saying this, and this is why groups like this do
You're
it.
concerned.
To say, this is, if you're going to play this game, we're going to play this game too.
Sure. That's why the Satanists always want to erect flying spaghetti monsters or something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the Pastafarians.
Well,
Pastafarians. They do. Was it Satan like descending into hell or something like that?
No, I think the favorite one is Bahamut or whatever.
Bahamut, yeah, he's
with a child at his knee teaching Bahamut's, like trying to be very offensive.
And that's like,
it's okay.
Probably too. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's their belief.
Right. I mean, don't they have a right to it?
They do.
But,
indeed, it's called the First Amendment.
Yes. But anyway, I think really the reasons why things like this happen, and anybody who's watching this, I keep gesturing behind the camera. I have a 6 foot tall flying spaghetti monster.
There is, which staring us in the face.
Which is he's blessing us with his noodly appendage.
I see that.
And he's whole grain too, so he's healthy. I built that in response to. Let's just segue just a little bit.
I was gonna say one day
we might as well
keep watching and pay attention.
I might turn that camera around. You guys
may see his noodly appendage.
That's right. Because when people want to put a nativity scene on the county courthouse grounds, which is public property, as a way of saying we here are Christians, because your own front yard isn't good enough for some reason, because church property isn't good enough for some reason. We have to say we as a county, we as a governmental body are going to endorse Christianity. That's on its own is unconstitutional. Yes. The way they backdoor this is the same way they backdoor a lot of these things, which is why humanists, Pastafarians, Satanists fight back with this sort of tit for tat. Is they say, oh, we'll open it up for equal access, so anybody can come and give their, in the case of the courthouse, their private donations of Christmas displays. Right. And this is a real thing. This happened in Columbia, Tennessee, like 4 years ago now.
It did indeed.
Which is why I have a 6 foot tall flying spaghetti monster.
In all fairness, it happened because of the flying spaghetti monster. I mean,
it didn't happen because of the flying spaghetti monster, because they were going to put a nativity scene on the courthouse grounds.
No, I know.
I called the courthouse. I called the mayor's office, and I said, if these people are insisting on putting their display up, I too have a display.
Touché.
And within, I think, 2 days, they decided, we're going to put it in private property somewhere and have a little,
do your thing.
Happy Christmas thing.
Yes, go, please.
And that's fine, because it's not government property. That was the point. Yes. This was, the mutual assured destruction.
This is a direct tie-in to exactly what you're talking about
right
here.
Because with regards to Kennedy and sort of brigadiering his prayer warriors to come out on the field, after the game and all take a knee and pray or kneel or stand or whatever it was they were doing, they were all there praying. The Satanists showed up and said, hey, well, if you guys are going to do it, equal access, right? That's the guise under which you pull this off.
Bremerton had this problem.
The Satanists showed up and said, okay, it's going to be our turn now,
so
right?
This is why the school district...
And then Bremerton goes, no. We're shutting all this down. We're not going to do this anymore.
That makes sense.
And for a minute, it went away. As you had mentioned, like he complied for... Kennedy complied for a certain period of time. And then he started doing it again after the Satanists went away.
Of course,
because they came out, it's like, it's the equivalent of the Baphomet statue next to the Ten Commandments.
Yeah.
If you're going to play that game, we're going to play that game. They show up to say, we really don't want anyone to play this game, but if you're going to play, we're going to play.
Yeah. I mean, we have to let you.
Yeah.
We have to let
legally.
You
you have to let us.
It's got to be done. I mean, and that's the way it works. And I think here's the real deal, at least as far as my opinion, before we transfer into this idea of why Congress and why legislative bodies can actually have prayer and things of that nature. The real issue is that you have public school districts that don't have a lot of money. Money's a real issue for these people.
Sure.
I mean, for every school district. I mean, this is why you even have this call for voucher programs, things like that. There's a real concern over how much money do we have to actually spend.
By the way, we're going to be talking about vouchers on Wednesday, I believe, on the YouTube Hangout, because, again, being an AU guy and someone who's a secularist, very much against vouchers.
Awesome.
So anyone's listening to this who wants to come in and debate me. I didn't wear my I'm an atheist debate me shirt because I don't have one. But assuming I have the equivalent of that Wednesday, that's apparently going down.
Sweet.
So come watch.
If yours truly is there, I'll probably just stay silent for most of it because I don't have a dog in that fight. But
which you should. But Wednesday, we're gonna say that for Wednesday.
Yeah, that's fine. So the real point here, though, is that there's a huge difference between something you do that's compelling or coercive, more specifically.
Yeah.
And something that may not be as obtrusive.
Right. And this is important to bring out nuance because people say, oh, the guy can't even, bow his head. Isn't that awful?
And I could talk about that all day long because the question does come up of, okay, so Mr. Kennedy, or Coach Kennedy, is not allowed to pray and take a knee after a win and start praying. Like, that's the ruling. Fine. Where's the slippery? Where's the end point? What's the slippery slope?
Right.
Because I mean, I'll tell you, I was raised Catholic. I mean,
so was I.
I come from a family of devout Roman Catholics.
So do I.
Big time. And so, one thing that's second nature of me, even as an atheist, is a sign of the cross. Shit's really going down, y'all. Boom. I'm dropping it. I mean, it's
that kills me a little bit. I gotta be honest with you.
Second nature.
Like, what
I'm telling you, honestly, like, really.
That's why I say Gesundheit and not God bless you.
But I don't train my mind to give up old practices and things like this, and it's really kind of ingrained in me. But the question then becomes, okay, so Coach Kennedy and his players and everything, they're in a football game. One of his kids gets a leg just severely compound fractured, broken. No one's really seen it. They saw it happen. Everybody got kind of
and everyone, when someone gets injured, everyone takes a knee.
Everyone's kneeling. What if Coach Kennedy does the sign of the cross and is praying silently to himself for this kid? Is that a violation? I mean, he's sitting on the 50-yard line. He's doing there are people everywhere in view.
I think it's
he's praying.
Unlikely he would be exactly on the 50-yard line, but I understand.
Sure,
but
you know what I mean. Like,
and here's the thing: what I've read,
he's a public spectacle still. People are looking at him. He's still kind of on the field. He may be sitting next to the kid. Let's say he's sitting next to the kid who's been injured, and he sees the extent of injury, and immediately he drops to a knee to join him and does the sign of the cross and lays hands on him, starts praying with him. Not as some spectacle, I guess, where he's inviting others to pray.
Versus him just reacting in the moment.
You can't hear what he's saying, but he's whispering to the kid, like,
here's
power of Jesus, whatever.
Okay.
For the kid who's injured.
First of all, nothing fails like prayer. I'm gonna throw that out there.
Okay.
Nothing fails like prayer. But given that, this would be a distinctly different set of circumstances than the fact pattern that we have at play here. Where we have a guy who started with locker room prayer and motivational religious speech to praying on the field to leading others to pray on the field with him to a spontaneous moment where he's not doing it to be seen. He's doing it as an in the moment, but let's sort of. And again, the key word I think is unobtrusive. The idea was he's not doing it to be seen. He's doing it.
Well, how do you draw the line there? Because how do you know he's not doing it to be seen? I mean, maybe it's just really a reaction for him religiously. Like, he tried to follow the rules, but he really can't. Like, he just feels the need to pray to Jesus when the team wins or something. I'm asking a realistic question.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, because it's hard to, where's the point where you delineate, between when is he just taken over versus when is he, fanning his little peacock feathers of go Christianity.
Okay. We're assuming that he's fanning his peacock feathers, and that's fine.
No,
I mean, I think
based on this, I would say that he is.
I think it's a pretty good assumption that he is.
I think if he's reacting in a moment to someone being injured in particular, I don't think there's premeditation on his part.
Sure.
Versus when he goes out onto the 50-yard line, specifically the 50-yard line, not the 47-yard line, not the 32-yard line, 50-yard line, middle of the field, and takes a knee.
Sure.
And thanks for whatever thing. And it's probably a positive message. I'm not, trying to hate on the message necessarily.
I rarely hear Christians really giving a really impositive message, but I mean, sure,
it happens.
But
it
doesn't matter because that's
really
I'm
more
not
Calvinist
the issue.
than you. But.
Yeah, but that's not the issue. The issue is the religious-led prayer that's specific to a God.
Sure.
And that's what I'm concerned.
It's the endorsement with the obvious effect is of being seen, and or the intent.
And we
of being seen
we could point to a coercive effect too.
Versus
people
an expression
feel
of goodwill.
compelled
Someone,
at least to join him.
Genuflex, kisses their cross, whatever it is.
Sign of the cross.
No, but people wear the little cross necklaces. Catholics do.
Rosaries. Is that what you're talking about? I mean,
they don't
rosaries
always,
are full.
sometimes they wear rosaries, but sometimes it's just a necklace with a cross on it. Anyway, and they would kiss it and do the
Clearly, you're far removed from this religion at this point, but yes, they do.
Yeah, it's been a while, 7th grade. I kind of done. But when this is done in a manner that's not, there's not intent to be seen. I don't think. I don't have as much a problem with it.
Well, you don't have the problem with it, but the question is, where does the constitutional realm lie, and how far can we stretch the issue? I mean, how much can you say? I mean, he's still making overt Christian acts. He's still, not only is it a Christian act, but it is identifiable with only a couple of sects of Christianity. He's really concentrated on that prayer. I mean, and what is the coercion? What is the coercion factor to the kid? And what is the coercion factor to the kid? The one particular student athlete whose leg is broken and is in pain and being prayed over. What's the coercion factor there? What happens if he's healed?
Either way, how do you not show appreciation? If you're the injured kid, how do you not show appreciation for that?
Exactly.
I think,
where have you put him?
That makes a pretty good case, actually, that is still also coercive.
Sure, it does, but at the same point, is that wrong? Is that something you feel violates the First Amendment? Because, honestly, I think you're going to have a damn hard time convincing anybody that was not a personal thing you did for someone. It's not a coercive act. It's not something where you're showboating or grandstanding, but something you genuinely felt out of your heart that you were trying to do something. I mean,
this is the kind of thing, in reality, this is the kind of thing that almost everyone is going to give that coach a pass on.
Sure.
Almost everyone. But if you were to really take objection to it, then if I was that prickly about it,
and that's what I'm saying. That's my point over the whole thing, though. I think that you make a good case of what you've said as far as him being showboating. Obviously, some Washington judge agreed with you, and the Ninth Circuit agrees with you too. And honestly, the Supreme Court might too if it gets punted up to them.
Yeah.
But my point is that
you think this will be?
I think there's a hard time seeing a difference to some degree between somebody praying because they feel compelled to after a win versus somebody feeling compelled to pray for an injured person. I mean, realistically, what is the effect of that prayer?
I don't know. Is it? I have a hard time with this. Maybe I would need to hang on.
We're just two atheists here.
We're two atheists here. I have a hard time even conceptualizing someone feeling so compelled to pray for an injured person that they may traipse across constitutional boundaries to do so.
I mean, I felt
with sincerity.
I felt compelled to pray for people who were very close to me who had debilitating diseases and sickness. I've been an atheist since I probably was 14 years old. I've said some prayers for some people that I've been very close to.
I know. I get that.
And I have, in the middle of my prayers, I've acknowledged to God that I don't believe He even exists, but I try to give Him a pass and say, look, show me some way, show me something, do me something. Right. If you're up there, big guy, I'm listening, this is a point where I'm going to pay attention, try to show me something.
Right. Sure.
And so that's where I'm
in this case, I don't know.
How can you dictate the actions?
I couldn't imagine being the coach in that situation, and me still thinking that's an appropriate action as a coach and as a public official.
But doesn't it have a lot to do with the fact that you don't have this overwhelming belief based on
it? It does. I am having a hard time with perspective here. I'll admit that.
And no offense to anyone when I say this, but religion is unreasonable. That's the point of religion. It's belief without proof. It is something where you transgress what is rational, and you have a faith in something. So you being a rational person, or at least not being biased by a faith in something that can't be proven. Sure, I can see your point, but I'm saying, can you see the point of somebody who has that? God, I want a better word than malady, but somebody who has somebody who has that condition, who actually feels.
And it's a condition.
I'm sorry.
Is religion a mental disease?
No, it's not. I'm looking for a word to describe that. But this irrational belief, something that you cannot prove, that you feel in your heart is true. How are you going to deny that impulse? I mean, isn't it kind of the impulse you feel for something you have proven?
I guess. Well, see, and here's the reason why I have such a problem based on my perspective is that my own beliefs, to include, that there is no God, or anything like that. If I'm in a situation where I'm questioning, espousing what I believe to be true, versus what is this other person's constitutional rights, I'm always going to put the Constitution first.
There's the correct answer, I think, too. And I think the court really kind of nailed it there as well.
And I can't, and because I don't have that level of belief in the day that this is the appropriate thing to do, to pray for this person in their sort of hour of need, they're in pain, they're suffering. I don't know how to see it as I need to do this more than I need to pay attention to what the Constitution says on this point in terms of my behavior. I'm saying I'm not a religious person, but if I was a religious person, I still can't imagine praying in that setting over that person, like in a way that's public.
Okay.
Because they may not want to be prayed for.
Sure. I'm going to tell you right now. Okay. So imagine that I'm playing quarterback or something,
and all this other thing.
Then, like we got in this big tussle for a football. I tried to intercept it or something, and somebody blew my leg out.
Right. You got.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you what. If I'm 16 or 17 years old at that point, I don't want to be.
Was it Heisman? Who was it that someone got like their legs snapped? This was a while ago.
I'm not sure, but
the whole thing with the blind side.
Oh, Michael Orr?
Yeah, he was recruited because they realized they need to defend their quarterbacks.
Yeah, sure.
Or was it Joe Theismann or something like that?
I don't remember.
I don't know all the details, but some guy got horribly injured.
Okay.
Imagining this happens on the field.
Sure, but no, I mean, either way, the horrible injury. Like, I'm putting myself in that position as an atheist at that age, at like 17. If I'd been the one who'd had my legs snapped, yeah, I'm gonna tell you, Coach K, shove it up your ass. I don't want to hear it.
Right. Go get me an ambulance, right?
Exactly. What are you doing? My leg is broken.
Yeah.
Jesus is not saving my leg, bro. The EMTs will. But that's me.
Okay.
And at the same point, again.
And I know it's done in sincerity. And guys, I know
that's my point.
I'm a little.
Where do you get the line? Where do you feel like you can actually draw the line and tell an American, you can or can't do this? Not even an American, but I mean, hell, undocumented immigrants have the same rights that we have as far as the First Amendment goes. I mean, they may get caught up in whatever.
Right.
But the point is, they can still express freedom of religion.
Okay. Yeah.
And that becomes a question of, again. So I'm a public school official, and I'm just reacting to the situation I'm in. I hold firmly Catholic beliefs, and I come over to my player. I'm worried about him. I run up to him, and I see the extent of the injury, and I fall to a knee and drop the sign of the cross and say, Jesus. And start praying to the Lord, to this kid. Like, I didn't want to see this happen to him.
Of course.
I feel, compelled to call on my Savior to do something to help. Do I deserve to lose my job, or to not even be offered an extension, or to be suspended with pay?
I wouldn't go there with it necessarily. Again, significant difference between that,
Sure.
you know, in that situation. I think someone would be told to, and again, this is if you appeal to AU, Americans United, or Freedom from Religion Foundation, or ACLU, or any of these other, you know, sort of civil rights minded groups about religious freedom. You know, if you were so aggrieved, say, as that injured party, that the first step is to write a letter to the school district saying, look, this happened, it's unconstitutional, let's not do that again, or this is going to go to the next level. This is typically what AU and FFRF does.
In all fairness,
I would say
interjected
that
myself when
we would not expect a guy to lose his job over it. I would not, you know, sort of a breach in constitutional decorum would immediately lose his job. But if it's someone who flaunts that as a virtue, which is exactly, in my belief, what Joseph A. Kennedy did. If he's flaunting that repeatedly, and he said repeatedly that, yeah, I understand what the school district is expecting of me. I'm not going to do it.
Sure.
Because he stopped for a little while with the praying on the 50-yard line, and then he went back to doing it and back to leading in prayer and all these things. And you know, they had sort of had enough of him at that point. And I think that had to do with his suspension. But what do we want to pivot to? The Greece versus Galloway? Did you want to touch on that?
I think
How does that relate to this?
Okay, so that's an interesting question. I mean, really, a lot of the time you'll see people make the argument of, okay, so this guy can't pray on the 50-yard line. He's a public official. He's in his capacity as a public official. He's under the color of being a public official. Well, why is it that, you know, my local government can have, you know, a school board meeting or a county commission meeting, and they can open with prayer? I mean, what the hell is that?
And they often do.
Yeah,
and they do here in Bremerton.
Yeah, what the hell is that? You know, like, why can they do that? Why can't the football coach pray over the injured kid? Why can't the football coach lead prayers, you know, on the 50-yard line when he wins? I mean, praise be to Jesus, right?
Well,
like,
not just that.
Isn't that what the county commission said? Isn't that the Better Business Bureau or whoever the hell who said, man, finances have been good. Praise be to Jesus. Like, what's the difference?
I think from the maybe partially educated laity, from that perspective, I would say that it's significantly different in that. Well, there's two prongs of this. The first prong is, I think, a lot of these sort of cases of, you know, school board, county commission, Congress, you know, opening with a prayer. I think it's poorly adjudicated in the fact that they're allowed to do that.
Well, it has been,
and that's just
yes.
yeah, and I will just say that as my own opinion. But what's significantly different is that in a school setting, you're among children who are compelled to be there in almost every case. It's slightly different because we're talking about a football game, because nobody has to play football. But they shouldn't have to check their constitutional rights to go to a football game either.
You know, I mean, some of us who are band students are obligated to be at football games, even as students.
Right, but you're not obligated to be in band. That's the counter argument, right? If you don't like it, you don't have to be there.
If you feel the music and the jams, you're obligated to be in
Okay, I don't know if that would win in court.
Sorry. If I'm the judge, it certainly would. Like, Your Honor,
that's what we need to become judges.
I'm feeling the beat. And I'd be like, you know what, son?
Judge
you're
McVeigh.
right. Boom. Anyway, sorry.
Right. Yeah, but you know, if they're there, if they want to participate, if they want to be a part of the community, they shouldn't have to be.
Why should
they shouldn't have to check their constitutional rights at the door?
Why should they be exposed to something like that? I guess is the question is. I mean, I want to participate in band. So now I'm in marching band. Now I want to participate in marching band.
Sure.
But I have to be at a football game, and some asshole assistant football coach decides he wants to inject his religion into me. And I mean, let's make him the bad guy in the Christian American perspective, and let's make him Muslim.
Right.
No,
yeah,
I mean, but I'm saying, like,
you know,
he wants to bust the carpet out and do everything.
Yeah, if you rolled out the prayer rug on the 50-yard line,
what the hell? You know, what if I don't want to be exposed to that?
People would lose their minds. And that's with the presumption of, you know, Christian ubiquity, that it shouldn't offend you, and if it does, who cares, because you're a minority. Right?
Yes, and that's not how it works.
And we don't take a head count before we enforce the Bill of Rights.
If that's the case, then why can we have Christian prayers with Congress? I mean,
because of bad jurisprudence, I think.
You think it's bad jurisprudence?
I think
to fill our
my understanding, to
get our listeners in. So in 2014, we had a Supreme Court case that was cut 5-4 along the conservative liberal perceived lines.
Surprise!
Called Town of Greece v. Galloway. And it involved a Jewish woman and an atheist woman who objected to town meetings, or I guess public meetings of public officials in this town of Greece, New York. A town of about 100,000 people. And, well, out here in the backwoods, that's a fucking city, bro. But anyway, yes. 100,000 people. And basically, for years, it had been either overtly Christian prayer or secular prayer, and it kind of jumped on and off. But there was always a prayer meeting at the beginning, and always like, God bless the state of New York, God bless the city of Greece, may Jesus' will be done, or something like that, or like in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Things of that nature. And they filed a lawsuit. They went through 7 years of litigation. The Supreme Court took it up. And the conservative branch basically gave in 5-4 opinions saying this is not the same thing as, coercion or influence in a school system or some public school system or something of that nature with Lemon v. Kurz and all that stuff. They said it's not coercive. There's no real call to the prayer. You don't have to be involved in the prayer. The prayer is mostly non-secular. Whatever. We don't see it as violative. Yeah,
that's my understanding. That it was ruled as a legal term I've learned recently is de minimis. That basically that it just has a minimal impact. It's not really hurting anybody. It harkens back to tradition of doing these things. It's not considered overtly religious because of that.
I believe Kennedy wrote the opinion for it.
Okay, can you expound?
A little bit, and Kennedy basically, yes, said the same thing of there's no compelling or coercive call to participate in the prayer, that it was mainly secular. I mean, they recognized that occasionally there was some religious leader that came in and did the whole big Jesus thing. But mainly it was secular. And the question became one of, is that violative of the First Amendment? Is this a problem? Do we think it's a problem? And really, with the 5-4 split, Kagan led the dissent and said, yes, at no point should anybody who's coming to redress their government be exposed to one belief over another, or be given the impression that one belief is more important than the other.
Right. And to me, it's the same as wanting to put up the 10 Commandments outside the county courthouse, in a sense that the reason it's a problem, because if I'm walking in there as a person who recognizes that the 10 Commandments are sort of
as a person,
morally invalid, and that
sure.
it's not something I ascribe to in terms of my own beliefs. If I'm walking into that arena, I feel like I'm walking into the lion's den.
So what you're saying is that
then I will be
if you're going into a
second
court,
class.
you're redressing the government in some way.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I'm being told, the message to me as an atheist, or as anyone who's not a Christian, is that you're not on board with us. We're going to be automatically. It's going to be oppositional.
Your opinion, second class.
Yeah.
Okay. So that leads me to the question of what about going to a public meeting and there being a 30-second, 45-second devotional prayer thing makes you feel alienated before the meeting begins?
Well, it boils down to in-groups and out-groups. That I've immediately been placed in the out-group.
Okay, of course. But now I'm asking the next question. If you have, say, a court case where you're charged with some crime or something like that, and you're about to walk in the courthouse, and it's Christmas time, and you're an atheist, or you're a Muslim, or you're a Jew, and there's Jesus in all of his baby 8-pound, 6-ounce glory being held by the Mother Mary or whatever, and the whole manger thing.
Einstein.
And I mean, you got to walk right through that.
Yeah. I'm thinking I'm not going to get.
Well, hell,
let's
say that you're charged with vandalizing a church with some anti-religious message or something like that. Do you feel you're going to get a fair shake in that courthouse?
Probably not. No.
Okay. Now, how is that different from going to a public meeting where you're going to say this new school board policy of not putting air conditioners on school buses is bullshit, and you walk in there and there's a 30-second devotional prayer? Do you feel alienated on the same level? Do you feel like you're coerced to be involved in the prayer so someone's going to hear you bitch about school buses?
Actually, yeah. I think it's my impression, And
do you think it's on the same level as the crime you're accused of?
I wouldn't say it's identical, no. But I would say that there's still sort of an unspoken understanding that takes place. Okay. And this just might be me projecting, persecution or something like that. That if you go in, fine, call me on it. It's cool.
Maybe.
I'm speaking, extemporaneously here. I'm just telling you what I think as I'm thinking it. That if I go into to talk about any issue, if I believe to be perceived on the outs of everybody automatically by walking into that room, and we know who's got their heads bowed, we know who's praying, we know who stood for the Pledge of Allegiance.
If they all bowed their heads to pray and closed their eyes, how do they even know you didn't join?
There's always one. There's always one.
But that's the guy. That's the guy who you think isn't like gonna.
No, because then you get the nod.
Well, okay, but then how is this a problem?
Again, what I'm saying is to be perceived automatically as on the outs.
How are you perceived when everyone's eyes are closed and their heads?
I'm not saying everyone is.
And the ones
you don't think people look. Have you ever seriously? Have you never done this? Have you never been in a group where there's a public prayer? Everyone's bowing their.
Under the
and I've been subjected to this regularly. Let me point this out. There are people that will look up.
Oh yeah, under the constitutional rules of the United States of America, just in general on substantive rights, I was essentially my parents' property until I was 18. I declared myself an atheist at 14. Okay. Guess who was still at Catholic Church every Sunday until he was 18? Yeah. I did not bow my head. I did not close my eyes. Okay. I did stand at respectful attention.
And you took that on the chin. I get it.
And yes, there were people.
And
I recognized my fellow parishioners who didn't want to fucking be there.
But it's not just about you and whether or not you have that particular steel in your spine. This is for other people who maybe don't.
Okay. So then my question becomes one of, I get the idea of not erecting monuments to Christianity outside of the courthouse. Okay. That makes perfect sense because that's intimidating. That's a problem. Again, if you at least believe you're falsely accused, and let's face it, if you haven't been convicted of a crime, you are innocent until proven guilty. Okay. If you're charged with spraying, hate messages on the side of a church.
But here's the thing: in either case, I don't know if I'm explaining this well.
I think it's a great example of if you've sprayed hate messages on the side of the church, if you're accused of that, and you have a court date in a courthouse where a judge will determine your guilt or innocence, at least, even on a preliminary level. Do you feel like you're getting due process if on the way in the judge has endorsed all of this Jesus shit all around you?
No, of course not. No,
I wouldn't. Don't. And I mean, and no reasonable person would.
Right.
Right? I mean, is there anyone out there who would say reasonably, oh, well, they're a bunch of Christians, they're going to listen to you, and it's going to be fair? No, they're endorsing a religion that you are accused of mocking. Right. You're not going to get a fair trial. Everybody fucking knows it.
But by the same token, though, if I'm in the meeting and then we're going to talk about air conditioners on school buses, if I'm already perceived to be a public ne'er-do-well because I am an atheist, the evil, whatever, spawn of Satan, if people already know this about me, and people will know this about me because they know about me publicly.
Well, that's because you run your mouth. But
I do run my mouth. And shouldn't I be able to?
And actions have consequences. But... yes,
but being
no one said you couldn't.
Having bias against me because of my religion
does not sure. But do you think that was going to change the opinion of anybody you had been redressing that already knew you were a loudmouth atheist?
Would it change the opinion
of any of your public commissioners
to not know I was a loudmouth atheist?
No, to have known that already. They already knew you were. If they didn't see you praying in the meeting, do you think that's really going to change your? What if you did pray with them in the meeting? Do you think that's going to change their opinion?
That would be so. See, to me, that's more disrespectful.
Yeah. See? Yeah. So that's where the question comes in of what did that violate? Because I think we can draw a huge difference between what Coach Kennedy
hang on, though. If I'm coming in to any room, any meeting, anybody I need something from, and know that I am being viewed as the polar opposite, morally and essentially
You're
morally.
you're the bad guy. Look, man.
You beat the bad guy. Right. Yeah, I know. You've got the Satan beard. I know.
It's not a Satan beard, Jesus. But, you know, but at the same time, it does have the villainous look. And
yeah,
sure,
you look like the 60s Klingons a little bit.
Hello, Jafar. You know, like, yeah,
oh my
I get
gosh.
it. But,
but
at the same time, you know, like, it's possible to have this beard and still talk reasonably.
You know you're on the outs. You just do. Like, that's... And whether or not you can prove that in a court of law, whether or not it's got legal teeth, but you know you're in a situation.
Do you think that boils down to a level of on the outs that affects your redress that you give?
It could, certainly.
You think it could?
I can't prove it, no.
Do you think that Coach Kennedy, kneeling to pray on the 50-yard line, puts his players, students, and parents in a coercive position where they feel like they have to identify to earn some kind of favor?
Certainly.
Do you see the difference?
I want to say no. I want to say no because let me finish.
Sure.
I want to say no because, again, you know, if you're one of Coach's players and Coach is giving the Christian prayer, you know, do you feel like you're more likely to get what you want from Coach if you play along with that, whether or not you really wanted to?
Yes, absolutely.
Right? So if I go to the school board and I want them to do a thing, I want them to like me. Right? Otherwise, I'm not going to be persuasive. They're not going to do the thing that I want them to do. And if the presumption is, here comes this evil atheist looking at us doing this prayer, he can't stand that Jesus. If I'm walking into a room with that and I ask for something, do I think I'm going to get it? No, I don't. So to me, in that sense, it's not identical, but it's similar.
Okay, well, let me put it to you this way: the Republican Party always has a prayer, right?
Yeah. So does the Democratic Party.
Yeah, well,
and that's a battle I'm going to get to fight real soon.
Okay, but anyway, the Republican Party always has a prayer. I am an avowed atheist. There is no question. I shit on most Christian pushed things and will sit there and shit on it publicly to all of our Republican influence, to the Republican National Committee representatives, anybody who's there, I will shit on them and shit on them in public in front of everyone and say, that's not appropriate, stop. Boom.
Okay.
I've also worked for a lot of these Republicans' campaigns. I've gotten these people elected. I have worked in an official state capacity as a state government employee known to be an atheist for devout Republicans.
Devout Republicans. I like that. But
no,
here's the difference.
Devout Christians who are Republicans. But
Okay,
I thought the nuance was there. I'm sorry.
It's cool.
Devout Christians who are Republicans who had no problem employing me as an atheist, knowing full fucking well I'm an atheist.
Despite you being an atheist. It's despite. Don't act like it's not, because you're a lawyer, you're intelligent, you're skilled, you're motivated, you know, and you can produce for these guys and you're useful. What if you're just Joe Blow off the street who also happens to be a Republican?
How do you think I got to where I am in that situation? I mean, I came in and said, yeah, I'm an attorney from Louisiana who's not barred in the state of Tennessee, and I'm taking the bar soon. But I want to sit here and jump in your campaigns and help you. I want to get involved. By the way, caveat, I'm an atheist, and I don't give a shit about the pro-amendment 1 shit you're pushing or anything else. And I'm going to shit on it, and I'm not going to push it.
You understand you're arguing from personal experience here.
Yeah, of course. It's an anecdotal thing. But I'm saying that on that level, if I'm not feeling coerced, and again, it's anecdotal. You're right about that. But this is showing that the party and these people don't have that motivation, at least on our local level. And my point is, if you didn't bow your head and pray, and they had no idea you weren't involved in the prayer, how do you really realistically argue that you felt coerced to pray with them? Because did you? Did you feel coerced?
If I want something from a body of people, and I come in and within the first minute, anybody who observes, and there's always one, like I said, I joked about it, but it's true. There's always at least one that observes. It will be known that you're in opposition to the will of that group.
Is it opposition, or you just didn't feel like praying? I mean, why are you in opposition to the will of the group? They held a meeting and they held a prayer, but again,
it's how they identify. And if you're not identifying with them, this is part of the problem of identity politics. That if you're buying in to the Republicanism, but there's a lot of things that tend to come with it. Not necessarily, and I understand why you're different in that case. But by and large, if you're separating yourself in some sense, you're inviting trouble.
Isn't your point to invite trouble when you redress the government, though? Like, aren't you there to say, hey, you're fucking up? Like, this is the problem.
But this is the difference between, making an appeal
at
a party meeting.
You're already there on an opposition level.
Versus at, the county commission.
That goes more to my point. You're already there to be opposition at a county commission meeting.
Right.
Who goes to a public meeting of the county commission and doesn't have something to bitch about?
Right, but you also want to persuade those people.
Sure.
And if you walk in as something different, as the other, if you walk in as the other, do you really have any confidence that they will be sympathetic to your cause?
Why wouldn't they be?
Because you're the other.
Why are you the other? That's because you didn't pray with them?
Yes.
Doesn't that make an assumption about their beliefs and not yours?
How long have you lived here?
I mean, well, yes, of course, but I'm saying I'm giving my if we're going to talk anecdotal evidence, my anecdotal evidence is not only am I talking about my position at commissions and things like this, because I do the same shit for public commissions, but I mean, in the party itself, the party of Jesus, supposedly, these people are absolutely fine with my atheism.
Are they? Like
they deal with it. I've never once had.
Or they put up with you despite that.
I worked
again, I don't know. And
when
again,
I worked in my
anecdotal.
capacity for the state of Tennessee, I never once had anybody under me, on my level, or in a position of authority who tried to coerce me to do anything as far as religion went. Anything. If anything, I actually had them listen to my counsel on issues of abortion and things like this, where the state legislature passed laws saying, murder of an unaborted or murder of a fetus would be murder even if it wasn't viable. And we actually had a case coming up like that, and I spoke with the DA, just gave my opinion. It was early on, and I just said, do you want CNN and MSNBC and all these people here? Like, the legislature's wrong. Don't push this.
Again,
this is a bad
You have
call.
a unique skill set, and you were lending that as a benefit to that group, which I think in other cases.
Do you think these people listen? I mean, on that level, I mean, yes, they're listening, but at the same time, I thought we just covered that religion has a sense of irrationality, and like these people feel compelled to do it no matter what, even though it's violative of the law. I mean, I'm talking.
And you're saying
so. My point is that on a more shallow level, where you're not coercing children, you're not really drawing people to do something, such as Coach Kennedy was. Is it really that bad? I mean, does it really burn?
It is not. It is not. And I've said this before. This is not the hill I would particularly choose to die on. Mm-hmm. I understand, but just from my perspective, again, maybe as anecdotal as yours, this is a thing it's really not a matter of perspective. I think it's unethical. But is it the worst thing in the world? Is that what you're saying? That there's degrees of this shouldn't be happening.
And that's how we always decide what is.
I would agree with you on that point if we're going to maybe wrap this a little bit.
Sure.
I would agree with you. Is it nearly as bad as a coach doing this in front of his students and members of the community and everybody in his role as a coach on a football field immediately after a game? No, it's not as bad as that. Okay. I still think it shouldn't happen. That's really all I was trying to get at.
Sure, and I mean, I definitely understand your perspective there. And all I want to
and I am going to fight with Democrats about that, which would be amusing.
All I want to do is draw. I feel myself going to a Murray County Democratic Party meeting.
You're welcome to join us.
Great. I'll be photographed.
It'll be fun.
I'll be photographed there and slandered by several Murray County residents.
Oh, so you are worried about being the other.
Yeah, but only when it comes to being a liberal. Jesus.
See? It's a different kind of religion.
But anyway, oh, yes it is. But, oh, yes it is. Anyway, my point is, though.
I was talking about being conservative.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Or not wanting to be identified with the Democrats.
That's fine.
Anywho, though, I do understand your perspective of what you're saying, and I don't want you to feel like I was trying to ostracize you on that.
I don't mind being challenged.
The point is that I think that the way the First Amendment works is there are, and hell, all constitutional violations, period. There are acceptable violations. There are not acceptable violations. I mean, like with the Fourth Amendment, this is how we get to reasonable suspicion, even though the Constitution says probable cause. You've got probable cause up here. You've got reasonable suspicion below hand. But you need at least reasonable suspicion to even detain someone without an arrest warrant. you can do so. We kind of bend the rules and make exceptions to lighten the load, to not just draw hard and fast black and white rules. And I think the same thing happened here with the First Amendment, is that prayer at a public meeting, yeah, I see your point, but I don't find it coercive, and I don't think it's something that's...
And we mishmashed a little bit here, because we were talking about like party meetings, which are non-governmental.
Sure, true.
Versus, we're talking about the school board or the commission or city council.
I used the Republican Party meeting as a specific example because they're the party charged with leading this Christian movement. Right. And in all fairness, the party that I was talking about specifically, the Murray County Republican Party, is probably 99.9% Christian. I think I might be one of the only atheists, period.
Or the only one that'll admit it. But
well, sure.
We'll not get into that.
Well, but either way, but I'm a vocal staple. Like, I mean, I do not deny it. And
sure.
I've never been treated disrespectfully in that sense. Even in the meetings, I get some eye rolls, but that's about it. That's cool. It's never affected my ability to affect the party. It's never affected my ability to address them.
Okay, well, maybe you give me hope for future battles. I'm going to fight about whether or not the Democratic Party opens their meetings with prayers.
Call me.
You want to be a fly on the wall for that?
Oh, I want to be there.
It'll be entertaining for sure. But to me, it's just, it is a funny thing because I'm also, and I won't drop this too much, I'm the chair of an advisory board that's a county level advisory board that used to start with prayers. And I was like, well, they made me chair. So it was
there's religion being removed from your government.
It was pretty much the first thing I did, saying, okay, well, it's not necessarily the worst thing. This started because I was actually asked to do the opening prayer once, being an atheist, and I was like,
sure,
deer in the headlights for a second. Like, I was just here just because I was happy to be here, trying to lend whatever expertise I had to this advisory board, and being asked to lead the prayer. I was like, this is, part of my brain's going, do I? And this is my genuine reaction.
Well, I do want to close on this, but I want you to tell me how that unfolded. What was your prayer?
No, I didn't pray. So, but the initial reaction.
Did you go well wish?
Hang on a second. My initial reaction was, how do I fake my way through this? Can I flub a prayer? I was raised Catholic. Surely I know an All Father or something in there. Like, and I was thinking about it for a second, and then I said, no, you can't. And even trying to is disingenuous and would be disrespectful from someone like me to offer a fake prayer. And I have to be true to myself here. And so I told the chair at the time, I said, look, I called myself an atheist in the weirdest way possible. I said, I don't participate in religion. And that was the most like feckless way of describing myself as
that does raise some eyebrows.
Yeah. And he just looked at me like I had three heads. And he turned into some other guy and asked him to do the invocation, and they prayed to Jesus, and I'm sitting here going, why the hell did that happen?
Man.
Why and they
blue dog Democrats. Wow.
So
woof.
And so afterwards, I had some people come up and apologize to me, which blew my mind.
Now that's some liberal shit to do.
Yeah, but. And this wasn't about liberal or conservative. It's an advisory board for. I don't want to get into it because I'm not trying to conflate what I do here.
Yeah.
But the advisory board I was on was not of a particular political bent at all. It's nonpartisan. And they came up to me and apologized that they had put me on the spot, and they had agreed. Actually, it's really not appropriate to be opening this with a prayer because of this. Because what if you're not a Christian? What if you're Jewish? What if you're Muslim? What if you're Sikh? What if you're Zoroastrian or Wiccan or any of these other things?
Or atheist?
Or atheist? Like, well, I sort of included that in the beginning. But what if you're any of these things and you're being put on the spot and it's now been made obvious to everybody that you're not really one of the group, and it's completely antithetical to what that group was assembled to do.
Sure.
Was to come together and support something, which I won't get into.
Oh man,
I'm not going to touch it. I'm really not. And so when everyone else took a step back and I didn't move, and I got named chairman of this board, I said the first thing I want to do is end this awkwardness. I view it as unconstitutional. I view it as unethical.
I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the prayer.
And the funny thing is, I initially went to the moment of silence because I was trying to be respectful for other people. Say, let's open this with just a moment of silence, and we all sat there, and I felt the sweat on my head of the awkward silence for a minute. And I did it for like 1 or 2 meetings, and then I think I just asked, I was like, does anybody really need or want to have this moment of silence at the beginning? And everyone was kind of like, yeah. And just like that, it went away. And we stood and we did the pledge, and they say the whole pledge, and I don't say under God, but I say the rest of the pledge because I'm a patriot, but I don't agree with the revisionist version of it.
I'm an atheist, and I just say under God because I don't care. I mean, it's a pledge of allegiance. It's fine.
But you don't have to. And that was my point. I don't have to.
I don't have to do shit.
I'm exercising my right to not have to.
This is America, and I want to make it clear that in all the situations we talked about, I don't have to do shit. I don't have to pray with Coach Kennedy. I don't have to pray with the school board. I don't have to pray with your public meeting. Even if you got rid of the everything, even if you got rid of the under God portion, you know what? I'm going to make it last 2 seconds longer because I'm going to throw it under God anyway because I want to. I don't care. I just don't fucking care. This is America.
Okay, that's great. I'm glad if it doesn't bother you, that's fine.
This is America, guys. Do what you want.
But it irks me, and so I choose to exclude that phrase.
That's okay.
And actually, one of my, and this is a hard thing to explain to people, and again, maybe this is my own misgivings, my own anecdotal experience, that I went to the Reason Rally in, I think it was 2014.
Yes, I do remember that.
And we stood for the Pledge of Allegiance at the beginning of that. And they're all atheists, secular people, humanists, free thinkers, however you want to describe yourself. You're all basically atheists. Even the agnostics, you're atheists too. I'll get into that later.
Completely agree with David here.
And we all stood for the Pledge of Allegiance. Those of us who wanted to. Some people chose not to. That's fine. We all stood for the Pledge of Allegiance, and we said it. We said the OG Pledge of Allegiance that didn't include under God. And I don't know why it mattered so much to me, but I absolutely was in love with the fact that I didn't have to pause for a second and a half while everyone else said under God, because we just skipped right over that part. One nation, indivisible. That's it. And I was like, it feels so right. I don't know. I'm just being emotional about it.
But, I'm sure it feels right before you push the fucking button to blow yourself up as a suicide bomber. I'm sure it feels right to do anything else.
I don't see how that follows.
No, to involve conviction, especially some kind of First Amendment conviction based around religion. I'm sure that any religious conviction feels right when you do it, even if it's an absence of religion. But yeah, I mean, I think that pretty much drives us into the wall.
We've gone nicely down a rabbit trail here
right.
of my misgivings about religious people.
I don't believe they're misgivings. I think they're well founded, but either way, I think they're worthy of debate.
Yeah, and I think it's good we got to talk and flesh it out. And everyone who listens to this and finds something I've said objectionable or anything, I'm just a whinging snowflake.
I'm 100% positive that someone who listens to this will find something objectionable.
Well, particularly, I mean, directed at me. Direct all your love at me at fermentingopinions1@gmail.com. Feel free to email the show.
You can. That's all, David. That one.
Yeah, that's me. I own that. And if you guys want to come on the show and whatever.
Yes, check out our website, fermentingopinions.com. That's most likely where you got this. But if you did not, we have Facebook pages. We've got a public page, Fermenting Opinions. We have a discussion group that is a closed group, but you can totally
request to join.
Request to join. We'll let you in. If you screw up and you do not read the pinned rules, you will be removed rather quickly. But
we have a no edge word policy.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to jump in. And check us out on Mondays. We do these podcasts. Normally we've got an interview style, but we had some things in the works this week. But
sometimes we just got something stuck in our craw. Yeah. This was stuck in my craw particularly, so I wanted to talk about it.
David really wanted to get on this, so I figured I'd play devil's advocate and join in here with him, and then kind of throw in a little bit of legal perspective. Although I don't think we really had to get into that too much. But either way. Check us out.
Also, the YouTube channel.
The YouTube channel.
Fermenting Opinions. Please give us a follow. Is that what it is? A follow to that. Subscribe to our channel.
Subscribe to our channel. That's it. And also, our benefactor, a man who really does a lot of things for us, and we owe the man so much. RossJanes.com.
He's our digital wizard. He doesn't want to be called a wizard in light of all the hate. But digital wizard, we're going with.
I just can't imagine how somebody could bastardize the term wizard.
I know, right?
But he also runs a podcast called Ask About, I think.
Ask Me About.
Ask Me About. He runs a podcast called Ask Me About, which is a good fun listen. Check that out, and I apologize for getting that wrong. But
okay.
rossjames.com. Check Ask Me About. Check us out with Fermenting Opinions all across the board. It's been real fun. We've successfully browbeat each other over our own versions of atheism and where we think the line should be drawn. It's been a good time.
No, it's been interesting.
Otherwise, sir.
I am David Popoiden.
And I'm James McVeigh, and we are co-hosts of Fermenting Opinions. Y'all have a great night.